Welcome back to Routine Rundown, the show where we discuss the beauty industry and our routines beyond what meets the eye. I'm your host, Zoe Weiner, Senior Beauty Editor at Well+Good, and today we're speaking with the founder of Isla Skincare, Tracy Dubb. Tracy shares how her own struggles with her skin have shaped her approach to beauty and skincare, and how her experience in venture capital informs how she shows up in her mission to create a better skincare experience for consumers. Before we dive in, don't forget to please leave us a review, share this episode with a friend, and subscribe to our newsletter linked in the show notes to keep the conversation going. Now, let's get into it. We are here with Tracy Dubb. She is an industry expert and founder of Isla Skincare and just all around cool girl who I'm excited to hear all of the things from you, Tracy. Thanks for coming on.
An industry expert. I love the intro. You're going to do all my intros from now on.
So Tracy, we start every episode with sort of an elevator pitch on what's your beauty ideology, what's the Isla beauty ideology. How would you kind of sum up your approach to beauty?
Yeah. I mean, to put things simply, there's a lot of bullshit and noise out there in beauty. I learned that working in VC for so long. I learned that as someone who struggled immensely with my skin and still does. I have been on Accutane like in my life, not recently, but I was on it about 4 times. I burned my skin off with Retin-A. I've tried everything around the block. So I grew up like sort of in the trenches of using all different types of skincare. And then I went on to work in VC and I sort of saw how the sausage was made a little bit. And I kind of was like, I think that we can do better. I didn't necessarily think that I personally could do better because what do I know about making skincare, that the next guy doesn't know. But through work, I was introduced to someone who's been making product for brands for 40 years, or his family has, he's not 40 yet. And I got to see exactly the process of how all these mega brands and small brands are sort of coming to third parties and saying like, do this for us, do that for us. And there's just a big disconnect. And I think that's why there's so much noise and frankly, disappointing product out there. And so, my philosophy really was like, let's cut the bullshit. Obviously, Zoe, you know me a little. I'm not like a fluffy, like, bullshitty type of person. And I really wanted to sort of like cut to the chase of what made good skincare and what made bad skincare, frankly, and then figure out how to bring it to people at better prices and with more transparency. So our philosophy is all around transparency. It works for me personally because I want to know what's in my products. And I think it works for our brand because there's just a lot of like noise out there. And I think people are really sick of it.
I totally agree. Honestly, I feel like we should have called this podcast Beauty BS almost because I feel like there's so much these days and like so much that I feel like we're all seeing on TikTok that's going to work a miracle on our skin in 2 minutes, but really it's just a filter and it's hard to wade through all that,
Yeah. My passion for this and my desire to start a brand or be involved in a brand predates that. And now I think it's more important than ever to like cut down on the bullshit because I feel like society as it relates to beauty and wellness is sort of at a tipping point where it's gotten kind of unhealthy. And sometimes I'm sure Zoe, you feel the same way. Like I'm sort of loath to talk about skincare with certain people because I feel like you can tell when someone's going to be like, but I saw this on TikTok or, this celebrity brand and I want to try this and she has such great skin. And it's like kind of getting away from the point of it all, which is like, with topical stuff, with over-the-counter stuff, you can really change your skin to an extent. Like my skin was awful my whole life. And then I discovered that like skin barrier nourishment, is a really key thing for any sort of skin type, especially challenged ones. And that's kind of the philosophy around which the Isla products are built. And my skin did change, but you can only change your skin to an extent. Like there's a lot of celebrities out there. There's a lot of skin types that people look up to and it's beyond aspirational. It's unrealistic. And so, we want to be open about that and like sort of be like positive about why we're even doing this. It's not to just make people feel like, okay, I'm one serum away from changing my whole life.
No, I think it's so true because I think a lot of the aspirational skin that we see is not skin. It's a filter or it's thousands upon thousands of dollars of treatments, like things that are just not attainable.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your own skincare journey. I know you mentioned Accutane. What was your experience with skincare like before starting a brand?
Yeah, so I went to sleepaway camp when I was, in my tweens, and I came home that summer with like a shocking amount of acne. Like I even remember the way my parents looked at me. Like I don't know if it was heat, bacteria, puberty, but I that was my first breakout, and I continued to have breakouts for my entire teens into my 20s. I'm just one of those people for whom the acne is part of my journey. And so that's why I was on Accutane and I was on Retin-A, and I did a lot of really drastic things in my teens. And I think the harsh treatments that I was always doing, not to mention the money that I was always spending on trying to cure my acne, kind of gave way to all these other skin problems, texture issues, really bad rosacea, major sensitivity. And so like in my mid to late 20s, when my skin started to change and the acne was maybe more predictable or more controllable, I had terrible rosacea. I had all sorts of dermatitis. And, I think that was a real turning point for me where I was like, okay, everything that I've been doing to my skin, from really harsh chemical exfoliants to these chemical peels all the time to microdermabrasion as frequently as I can, is really probably contributing to this. And so how do I like dial it all back? That's when I got really into skin barrier health and repair. That's been a turning point for me. And so I think that's really informed my philosophy. I wish that I knew as a teen what I know now, because, it was horrible, but you kind of get sold on fads and trends and, ingredients. And so I think my journey is like twofold. One is on the like emotional effects of just not being able to get the results that are being promised to you. And then the other thing is that there is so much money that people with skin issues spend really believing it's going to help, and it's not right, and I think that that's sort of the struggle for a lot of women, and is, especially younger women, is like you're desperate for a solution. So when we were starting Isla, price transparency was also really important, and it had to go hand in hand with ingredient transparency and quality transparency. Otherwise, what's the point? But it just really was an important mission to me personally and us as a company to be able to justify why people are buying this product and why the cost is the cost. And so I feel like those are the two kind of pillars of my skincare philosophy in general.
I had a very similar experience, had acne, like tried everything, had Proactive. I feel like Proactive like probably still shows up to the house I grew up in because it just kept showing up month after month. But I mean, none of us knew back then what we know now. Like skin barrier health was not, I think I first heard that term like maybe 5 years ago. Like it just wasn't, we just thought we were supposed to melt off our faces and that was going to fix it.
Totally.
It didn't. Surprise. Now we know.
Mm-hmm.
And so transparency. What is transparency in beauty? What does that term mean to you?
So I think, when we started out a couple of years ago, I don't really think people were talking about transparency. I think very much the conversation was still around clean. And I know that when we were doing desk sides and talking to editors, everyone was like, yeah, no, we totally get it. Like clean is sort of murky. It's not defined. Does it really work? All this stuff. But so are you clean? Like, I think people just didn't know what box to put us in. And, we always say all of our product is safe. We formulate to the highest degree of not only safety, but efficacy and honestly, to a very, very high degree of natural origin ingredients. Like there are a lot of good ethos that came out of the clean beauty movement, but you can't just define yourself as a clean beauty brand, in our opinion. I just don't think that means anything to the customer, and it's not regulated and it's not safer all the time. I mean, just look at like, for example, natural deodorants and all of the issues that people get from using them, and they get rashes that kind of come back for the rest of your life. I mean, that's just like one example, and that's obviously not all natural deodorants, but there's a lot of just like unchecked science out there. So when we were starting out, we were like, we don't want to make these broad sweeping claims because we just know that you can't. Like you cannot do that in beauty. And I mean, with a couple of exceptions. So we wanted to empower customers with the information that they could kind of decide, is this product right for them? Does this product, for example, have niacinamide at a high enough concentration that it's, going to work for my skin? Now, you can very easily find research online about niacinamide, and the percentages that the range in which it's considered active. And so you would think that for brands marketing a niacinamide product, for example, which helps with things like texture and oil control, they would put the percentage of niacinamide in their product on their packaging or in their marketing, but no, they don't. And so you're just out there, I guess you're supposed to buy on a feeling. It doesn't make sense. And, there's a lot of information out there at your fingertips. And the only thing that I think a brand really is responsible to do is just tell you what's in their product. And for some reason in all of beauty, you don't have to do that legally beyond like an ingredients list. But if you're buying ingredients, products built around an ingredient and some claims, and you can't see how much of the ingredient is in the product, like it just doesn't really make sense. It's just marketing. So that was really, being ingredient transparent was really key to us. I touched on price transparency and why I think it's so important. I just think that consumers need to know, the beauty industry is known for rampant markups, and I think that narrative is already out there. The Everlanes of the world really kind of taught the everyday consumer about markups and factories and middlemen. So like, I don't want, to be known for our price transparency. I just wanted to be something that I just want to be a leader in the beauty industry around that, because I think it's fair. And I think that, no one really should be paying $300 for a serum that you could make for under $10. And I think now transparency is becoming like a buzzy word in beauty. So I'm sure that's why you asked me to define it. But I think that the key thing for us is that you sort of need all three to really truly be transparent. Otherwise, I think you fall into the realm of being kind of gimmicky.
No, but what's so mind-boggling to me is that what you're saying is the exception still. Like it's not the norm, where we often don't know what's in a product. I mean, we're seeing more and more, brands slap on 10% vitamin C, 2% like 0.2 retinol, whatever. But that's really only because people now like want to see those ingredients because social media has taught them what they are. But beyond that, like there's no reason to know legally like why we're paying for what we're paying for and what it is.
Yeah. And I think you have to like justify it a little bit to people. Like, I don't necessarily know if your average everyday consumer even knows that 10% vitamin C is a good thing or a bad thing. But I think that for the consumers that do want to know, and for the people that care about why they're paying for this product, it should be available to them. And I also think it's on brands like us to educate people a little bit more, because like, it's just so frustrating. There's so much information out there. And so I feel like there is some responsibility on the brands to make definitive statements about what does and does not work and what, should be done, and to not do it in a way that's just about their product. We try to be really conscious about talking about just all things beauty, and not always trying to sell so hard, because it's tired. Like it's just, everything has always been so sort of behind the curtain. In beauty, people should have just some basic information.
Do you think that consumer awareness of this is changing? I don't know if you've seen anything like in the conversations you're having with shoppers. I feel like from what I've seen, people are smartening up a little bit, and it's brands like yours that's making a difference. But where are we in the kind of shopper sense of this?
I can't tell. It's hard to know. Like, our customer does really appreciate, from the feedback that we've heard, the transparency, but we hear something often, which is like the simplicity of it. And I don't think that they mean the simplicity of the products, because our products frankly aren't simple. They're like multi-purpose. They have multiple active ingredients. If you go on our website, on our product page, there's like a host of information. But I think people like the streamlined way in which we have presented a line, because there's not a million products. There's not 5 serums to choose from. And B, I think the streamlined way in which we talk about the products and the ingredients. And so I feel that while transparency and this like, desire for better or more honest information might not be there yet, I think people are just gravitating towards what they feel is maybe a less bullshit approach. And I think the perception that there's quality and there's, heritage there, and there's care put into the products, because I think, the other thing that is probably fatiguing people is like, there's 100 times more brands than there were last year and the year before that. I mean, every day there's a new brand. So it is really hard. It's like, how do you choose? And, I feel like people just are fatigued from it.
I mean, I feel like I blink and I have 50 new emails in my inbox about a new beauty brand that's launching. And it's
Exactly.
so much. I've been doing this for 8, 9 years and like it's
Yeah.
never been like this before. It's nuts. So we talked about clean beauty a little bit. I know that you don't identify Isla as a clean brand. What is the problem with clean beauty and why is that not the litmus test that we should be using to evaluate our products?
People think clean beauty means like non-toxic or, chemical free. And that's just like factually not, they're not, equals. And so like all of the products that you can buy in a store for beauty or for personal use are and should be non-toxic. Like that's just, it's not like, oh, these ones are non-toxic and then everything else out there, is going to give you cancer or something. So I think there's like a false sense of security that people think they're getting. And then the other thing is with brands that kind of create their own guidelines or rules around what is safe, you may be gaining something in one area, but you may be losing something in another area, which could be efficacy or a different kind of safety. I mean, a lot of clean beauty products, they're not for everyone because they have more allergens in them, for example, or they go bad quicker because, they're formulated differently. And I think that's just, there's been like a lot of trial and error in the industry. And now people have started to realize that. And I think the biggest complaint for a lot of people is around the efficacy. Clean beauty products, at least the ones that really paved the way, they like tend to be more expensive than like your average product, or at least as expensive. And people really bought in, myself included. And then after a couple of years, you're just kind of like, this isn't working for me. Like, and so I think then you saw kind of a shift to like, I want clean, but I also want performance. So like then the industry norm kind of became like, where science meets botanicals or whatever. And it's like, suddenly there was like, it was okay to sound more sciencey because that's what people wanted. But there's just like no structure or truth or underlying, regulation to it. Like I could say I'm a clean brand. You could say you're a clean brand. Anyone in the world can say they're a clean brand. And that can mean a million different things. And it's just, it's like, it's just all smoke and mirrors to an extent. So I just think as a metric, like if you care about that, learn about ingredients and which ingredients you're looking for and which ones you're not. And you might be surprised to see some ingredients in quote unquote clean beauty brands that aren't great for you for one reason or another. So it gave people like a false sense of security. And I think maybe a letdown on product efficacy.
I mean, I think people also forget like brands don't want to put out like dangerous products. People aren't going to buy their products if they're putting out toxic, dangerous products. And anytime, that has happened, like the SKUs are pulled from the market immediately. So I feel like it's like the vilifying of everything else is not right.
The big irony, I think, of clean beauty and the clean beauty movement is it sort of made brands like Procter and Gamble, for example, and they're like, stable of brands, like those like drugstore brands that have been around forever, sort of made them out to be like the villain, like they're causing cancer and they're doing all this. When actually those brands, I mean, there might be other issues with their products, like, their soaps may be too harsh because they need to use cheap ingredients and things like that. And so it might dry out your skin. But like those brands are so heavily regulated because they're like multi-billion-dollar companies. So they're actually doing testing, very, very rigorous testing before they put out a product. They're very aware of complaints and claims. And that, obviously these companies have had their issues with certain over-the-counter products and there's been lawsuits and things. But I think it's just ironic because, and I'm not like necessarily endorsing these drugstore products for people, but I think the narrative is totally inverse. Like anyone can put any sort of oil or like homemade lotion or potion in a jar now and sell it at a store. And nobody is checking like, hey, is this good for you? Is this going to burn your skin off? I mean, sure, after the fact, probably word would get out, but there's just no regulation.
Yeah, and I've been to some of those big like drugstore R&D plants, and there's a lot going. Like there is testing for everything, and like a zillion dermatologists. Like there's so much that goes into them. So, agreed. I think we have reached this kind of tipping point where, I mean, and honestly, TikTok, social media, like all of this, like the CeraVe moment that we've been in for the last 2 years. Like it's all we're shifting in a different direction for sure.
Yeah.
And so, Tracy, pre-Isla, you worked in beauty venture capital, which is very cool. And so, tell me a little bit, kind of how that worked and what that like. You spotted cool new brands, right? I know minimal about this sector.
Yeah, I mean, we were called, like, we identified as a consumer products venture capital fund. So basically we were working across the industry of, I would call it health and wellness, fashion, accessories, beauty, food and beverage, fitness. And I think the like underlying theme was that everything was sort of being taken over by this like healthy, better for you direct to consumer model. I did, from a place of passion, really focus on beauty. I worked with a bunch of beauty brands. We made a couple of investments that have, done really well. But, for me, that really just meant meeting brands when they were either pre-launch or had just launched and sort of, deciding whether or not to invest in them, and oftentimes like working with them post-investment. I learned more from the brands that we didn't invest in, but that we met with, because, that was really eye-opening for me when I was like, you would ask these brands oftentimes about product, like, okay, where's the product? What's going on with the product? And they're like, oh, we don't know where we're getting it made yet. Or like, we don't have the final formula yet. And that really was like illuminating to me. I'm like, wait, you can't, you have this whole company here, but like, you don't even know what your product is yet. Like, shouldn't it start with the product? And, and certainly other companies have, it's not a general story about how brands start, but I just sort of got to thinking like, wow, the power of these things really oftentimes is in marketing and not really in the product, because it's really just in getting people to buy it, first before they can try it. So it just made me, as a person who like was passionate about this, be like, hold on, like let's kind of like lead with the product first. But in general, working in beauty VC, I mean, it was a great experience. I loved it. You get to meet a lot of founders. You get to talk about like all different people, having new ideas to like disrupt the space or in like really attacking like old categories. And it's a really fun job, I think.
When you think about disruption in the space, transparency, I think, is a big one. Kind of what were the things, maybe not even now, like 5 years ago, that were exciting you about disruption?
Yeah, I mean, I still think multi-purpose hybrid product is like my biggest passion. Like, I love a skincare product that, has makeup benefits. I love a serum that does a lot of things on your face. Like, I just am a huge fan of that kind of stuff. Give me a lengthening mascara that actually has like clinical studies behind it, like all of that stuff. I really think if you're putting something on your face, it should have a purpose there. And so when I'm wearing just makeup for makeup's sake, I mean, of course it happens. I'm like, ew, why is this on my face? I want this to be doing something. I think that a lot of that has been tried from the perspective of like makeup companies adding skincare benefits. I don't think as many skincare companies have gone into the color space or even just the like makeup benefit space. We try to really launch each product with, 4 to 5 backable claims around, function and what the product can do. And that's, you're always going to see that from us. And we, one of our launch products is this moisturizing primer called Face Base. And that's,
There it is.
that's my like that. Exactly. And I was actually just thinking, I was having coffee this morning and I was like, I love Face Base so much. Like, I have been using it for 2.5 years now. And like, I just love it. And it's great. It feels good. You could put makeup on over it, but it really gives you enough moisture to get through the day. It's a great example for me of like how you can kind of bridge the divide. And then I think another thing is packaging and application, because I think you can iterate on things like, a face wash always, but like you're still gonna, end up getting a face wash. And so maybe actually the innovation is in the packaging and the application of it and not just the formula itself. And, and that's really exciting to me. And then how do you do that and think about that in the context of sustainability and where the world's going? It feels like it's like peak skincare, but I do feel like there's a lot of opportunity. And I really want to be the type of company that's always, like thinking about it a little bit differently.
No, I love the idea of more skincare makeup, because like I work from home. If I have to go out for a meeting and put on like a full face of makeup, I'm like, this is such a waste of like covering my skin in foundation that's not going to do anything, and then I have to go home and scrub it off. I just want things
Totally.
that'll be nice to my skin.
Totally.
And then my last question for you is, what is your routine rundown? What do you use on a daily basis?
So I don't always wash my face in the morning, which is like, was a revelation for me that like not everyone had to, because I've been a twice a day, face washer since I started to get acne in my teens. But then, I realized when I went to bed with a clean face and that I woke up in the morning and I hadn't sweat at night, sometimes just a toner or like a quick wash with water worked. And I think, this is sort of in keeping with like really just like being a bit gentler on your skin. However, I am 6 months postpartum and lately I wake up like in a pool of sweat. So typically I wash my face with a gentle wash. I will have gone to bed with a clean face. So it's really just about like getting some of that bacteria off. I like a balm wash. I'm currently using the pharmacy one, which I think is really nice. I think it's new. And I also use that at night. I will wash again at night if I'm like taking off makeup or like just trying to get sunscreen off and stuff. I use our Tone Balance Elixir, which is currently out of stock, but is coming back in stock and also is being renamed the Elixir so people can get it out of their mouths easier and faster. We call it like an essence. An essence meets a toner. In essence, for anyone who doesn't know, is just like kind of like grouped with a toner, I think a lot of times in skincare routines, because it's a similar weight. It's a watery product, but it's really about like hydration and nourishment. And ours is really antioxidant rich. And so it's like, I think of it as like a glass of water for your skin. Like, they tell you to like drink a glass of water when you wake up every morning. Like that's Tone Balance Elixir to me. I use my serum, Storm Serum or Our Serum, which is a multi-purpose serum. Obviously, hydration is the big one, and it has hyaluronic acid in it and glycerin and some more, I would say like niche ingredients that are based around hydration. It also has ingredients that attack redness and just sort of protect your skin throughout the day. I do use a vitamin C in the mornings as well. I put on some prescription rosacea cream because that's, my life. And then I use our face base priming moisturizer during the day. And then I'll put on makeup if I have to, sometimes I don't, or I try, sometimes I'll mix it with concealer or foundation and just kind of like do a light cover or light layer. And that's like kind of the morning. And then at night, it's a similar routine, but I add in a retinoid usually, or an exfoliant. I use Dr. Gross's exfoliant pads, like the 2-step pads. I think they're really great. I'm always experimenting. And I use a prescription retinoid. And then I use our Whipped Cream, which is our heavier moisturizer at night. And then sometimes I will use a face oil over that because, if I'm super dry, I think it's like a big PSA for people that that's how you're supposed to use a face oil. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think people really don't know where to put them in their routine. So I've been answering that question a lot lately. But yeah, that's it. I mean, I try to keep it relatively simple. I obviously use all of our products and love them and want to just add in where I need to.
Same. I think simple is great. I'm like, I feel like you also didn't mention this, what is it? The snow melt exfoliant, which I love.
The snow scrub
Snow
exfoliant.
scrubber.
Yes.
Oh, it's so good.
She's an exfoliant, so she's not in the everyday routine. I didn't want to, feel like I was plugging all of our products, but yeah, I use that twice a week, 3 times a week. In the morning. It's a physical exfoliant, but it's extremely gentle so that, you don't irritate your skin, but you really do feel polished, which I think you don't get that from a chemical exfoliant. But yes, Snow Scrub is our baby. I think it's a really, really unique product. I've never felt another product like it. It kind of feels like little glitter beads suspended in Jello, but better.
It's such a happy experience. It's so sensorial.
Yeah.
It lives in my shower and I use it all over my body.
Yeah. No, and it's so appropriate that it is called Snow Scrub because it's made in the Alps, in the Swiss Alps. It's actually formulated with red snow algae, which you can only find at the top of in really extreme temperatures. So at the top of the mountain, in this case, at the top of a Swiss glacier. It's glacial water. So it's a really unique product for sure.
See, this is ingredient transparency, everyone. This is what's in the product. You know where it comes from. It's in the name. We love it. Well, Tracy, thank you so much. This was such a treat. The products are great. I use all of them in addition to the exfoliant, and they're just great. The brand's great. We love you guys. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I love that you guys are doing this podcast around no bullshit. And hopefully I'll get to come back.
Yeah, we'd love that. On the next episode of Routine Rundown,
we don't want to say only take your essentials with you, because to me, only taking my essentials is maybe my cleanser and my moisturizer. It makes me forego my toner and my serum and my face mask and my retinol. And so we wanted to say, hey, you can bring all of that and we can make it simple for you so that it's not a headache. It doesn't take you an hour to pack carry-on only. You can pack in 10 minutes. Your stuff is already there. The capsules can serve as a packing list.
On today's show, you heard me, your host, Zoe Weiner, in conversation with Tracy Dubb. Routine Rundown is a Well+Good Studios production. If you like what you heard, please share with a friend or two so they can join the conversation too. We also have a newsletter for you to subscribe to, which we've linked in the show notes for extra insight on all things mentioned in today's episode. And if you feel so moved, you can always drop us a line at podcast@wellandgood.com. Routine Rundown is produced by Taylor Camille, Jen Snyder, and Abby Stone, along with help from many other hands and brains at Well+Good. Our episodes are edited by Sarah Gabrielli and Maya Stone, with additional production support from Malia Agadello and Ashley George. Our theme music was created by Nick Doss, and our show art was designed by Natalie Carroll, Jenna Gibson, and Alyssa Gray.